Welcome back to Classroom Brew. This is episode 67. If you haven't already, please make sure you rate and review whatever app you're listening to. Subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Check us out, patreon.com/classroombrew if you want to get featured content like video podcast highlight clips or full-length video podcast episodes. If you want to reach us, we are at Classroom Brew on your favorite social media, as well as classroombrew@gmail.com if you want to reach out, be on the show, anything like that. Is that everything? Did we get it all? Did I miss something? Probably. How's my voice sound? Is it still kind of sick sounding? Just getting over a cold, so I have all that chest stuff. That's beautiful. So let me know. I'm curious. All right, let's do the show. Hey, podcast listener. Welcome to Classroom Brew. Podcast where you're going to feel like, hey, are these my teachers? At a bar? Talking about everything? Yeah. Actually. Yeah. So this week, I'm joined by Brittani. Brittani, how you doing?
Good.
Do you listen to a lot of podcasts by chance?
I do. I used to listen to a lot more when I lived out of state, because that was what I listened to when I was driving all the time.
Sure.
But
like
I do.
Commuting, or was this just in general?
Doing what?
Commuting?
No. I lived in Iowa. My family's in Wisconsin, and so I was driving back to see my family way too frequently.
Okay. Like you went to University of Iowa?
No, my roommate did.
Oh, okay.
And I taught while she was doing grad school at the University.
Got it.
Iowa.
That's where I went.
Nice.
That's why I was like, okay. Actually, when you reached out to the show, it sounds like my buddy who was doing some stuff on Reddit, he got a hold of you.
Yeah.
Had you listened to the show before that, or was that your first experience?
No, that was the first
or?
time I heard of it.
Okay.
So, he posted something on the teachers subreddit, and that's like what I do during my lunch break.
Okay.
Is just it's technically still work because I'm learning about.
There you go. Well, that's your lunch break.
Other teachers'
no judgment
experiences. But no, and so so he had posted on Reddit and was like, "Hey, we're looking for teachers for a podcast." And I was like, "I love podcasts and I love talking about teaching," and so I sent an email real quick, and he got back right away. He was like, "All right, I'll keep you posted." So
cool. Yeah, that worked out.
And then I listened to it, and
well, that's good. That's good. All good things. I'm hoping. All good things.
Oh yeah.
With Reddit, I don't really know enough about it, but it's just a forum thing, right? Where people post on it. And,
right.
Okay. If you like post on it and read on it on your break, like what do you usually look for when you're on there?
What I like about, especially like the teachers subreddit, can be really ranty and like everything is awful. When can I quit
Sure.
my job? But it's also nice to be like, oh, good, I'm not the only teacher who has that class or has this situation. I don't usually comment or post because, in general, posting things online, you can get a lot of negative feedback, and I don't.
Sure.
There's a couple of times where I've been like, oh, here's my story. I've had like 5 people who corrected my grammar, and like 2 people were like, that's not true. And I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah, it's just my experience, but whatever. What do I know?
Right.
I think my buddy posted a couple of the clips from the podcast too, like video clips, and I think they got like they're called like votes up or votes down or something like their upticks. I don't know. He was like, "You're starting off really great. You got like 6 upvotes," and I was like, "I don't know what that means, but all right." And
For that subreddit, that's pretty good.
Okay, that's good. So then I looked at it, and it was like negative 10 points, and I was like, "What? Like, how is this that negative?" So it's definitely one of those things where you're like, "I think I got to take this with a grain of salt." And
it was really helpful though. Like when I was student teaching, I had posted and was like, "Hi, this is awful, and I don't know what to do." And there were a lot of people who shared their stories in response, or were like, "Well, if this is, here's some things that you can do. Also, just like survive it." And I was like, "All right, cool." And that was helpful to be like, awesome.
Sure, not alone.
Right.
Yeah. So, by the way, listener, you might hear some background construction noise because apparently I have the worst timing in the world, and they're doing some work on, I think it's the building next door and my building itself. Which, by the way, what are you drinking right now? I've got a Corona right now with some lime.
Screwdriver.
A screw. Oh, geez. That's a rough one, especially 2 in the afternoon. Mad respect, though. That was my go-to when I was still figuring out what I could and couldn't drink. I would do Tito's and orange juice.
Yeah.
Because I was like, all right, orange juice is safe, obviously, and Tito's is obviously gluten-free. So
I can't drink beer, so I usually drink bourbon or whiskey or rum.
Okay.
Mixed with things.
Right.
but vodka is always good too.
Is whiskey? I feel like whiskey is one that's problematic too, though, because I used to drink like Crown Royal and Club
I don't have issues with it.
Okay.
So I don't know why I can't drink beer.
That's like we were talking about. You mentioned the cookie thing, and I was like, cookies are fine. It's just certain beers. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason. I don't think the world knows what it's about either.
No, and being from Wisconsin, it's really sad because I'm like,
yeah, I bet.
We have so much good beer, and I hope you all enjoy it. And I will just be here with my other options.
Now, by the time this episode comes out, it'll already be over. But are you excited for tomorrow's game with the Bears and the Packers?
It should be really good.
I'm really excited for it, actually, because it's like finally both teams. I mean, rough record for the Packers, but they're still a good team.
Been so bad.
They're still a really solid. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers, so you'll be fine.
Well, yes, but it's so sad.
Yeah. Feel our pain. We've gone through that. We finally have a good year, which is great. So.
I know. Yeah. And this year I'm doing fantasy football. And so I'm the Packers are fine, but like I need Kamara to do really well because that's who's on my fantasy.
He'll do fine. He'll get you like 40 points or something.
Right. So
this was my roughest fantasy. I've done it for like 7 or 8 years now. And this is the first time I haven't won at least 10 games. So it was a terrible season for me, which like I guess I've had a lot of really good luck.
Right.
I made it into the playoffs. I was third place. Like, all right, not that bad, but I can still do better. And then he had like Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, and they're like these guys that score like 40 points each per week. And so I just got rocked. Like he scored like 210 points. I got like 140. Yeah, it was rough.
No, when I made my team, I just was picking randomly.
Okay.
And so my team name is like Last Place Brittani, and I don't think I've been in last place yet.
Nice.
Mostly because my little brother is in the league too and doesn't actually have the ESPN app on his phone.
Okay. That is a disadvantage.
It's blocked by like the parent guards on his cell phone, so he can't actually play.
That is a disadvantage. It used to be you couldn't, they didn't have apps when I first started.
Right.
So it's like if you heard there was a trade, you had to like run to a computer, figure out who it was, and then do like the change on your roster. But now it's a lot easier. You just real quick on your phone and it's done.
Yeah, usually it's like Thursday at like 3. I'm like, oh shoot, I need to look real quick.
Yeah, set the lineup. Thursday night games really screw me over too a lot. It's rough.
Yeah.
So I guess, sorry, little sidebar, but that's the stuff that I really care about. But what grade do you teach? You mentioned student teaching, but we didn't quite get to what grade you teach.
So currently I'm in my 3rd year of teaching, and I'm teaching 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade ELL students, which is English language learners.
Yeah.
So I'm not a classroom teacher. I'm considered a specialist at our building.
That's awesome. We just had Adam on, who he teaches biology, and he used to teach. It's called Embark. I am the other Embark teacher, but they switched him out of that because our ESL teacher left to go to another school, and he's taking that over now because he's like the only one certified in the building. I wish I knew enough about it. Our former ESL teacher asked me like, "Hey, do you want stuff for the certification?" And I was like fresh out of grad school, so I was like, no, I'm sorry, not right now. But what's like a day-to-day like when you're doing ELL as a specialist?
As a specialist, it is, well, the person who had the job before me didn't do anything.
That sounds like my predecessor too.
So apparently he read the newspaper and took naps every day.
Okay.
For an hour or so.
Yeah, it's pedagogical strategy, technically.
Right. I know. They tried to give me this huge teacher desk in my like tiny little closet of a room, and they're like, well, that's what he had last year. I was like, he also didn't teach, so can I get some tables? Thank you. So I do intervention groups, so all the grade levels have time where the kids are pulled into small groups and taught by other teachers with whatever skills or programs they need. So there's like literacy programs for kids who are really low in reading, or there's math for kids who are doing math. And so I have ESL and do small group. This year we're doing reading instruction, and I had to write that curriculum because we don't have one.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's my favorite. And
you and Adam should talk too. He had to do that issue
my
too.
Stars. It's so annoying. And then like I was like, hey guys, I made this thing, and everybody was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, all right.
Yeah. That was my whole first year too. Is like everyone, I was like, look at this, isn't this creative? And they're like, yeah, sure, man.
Right,
cool.
right.
I'm gonna go teach it now.
Yeah.
Bye.
And then the rest of that's like an hour and a half of my day, and then the rest of the day spent forever at the beginning of the year trying to figure out when my students need the most support, which is usually during reading or writing. And I work in the classroom. And so while the teacher is instructing, I'm walking around and making sure that my students are listening and paying attention. And then I'll work with them in small groups on actually completing the work that they're doing in class.
Sure. What types of like languages do they speak? Like what's their native language?
At our building, all of our ESL students are Spanish speaking.
Okay.
Nice. So our school district has a little bit of variety, but for the most part, it's Spanish speaking.
I feel like, does that make it easier to kind of focus on just like, here's one language? So like if you had to do a little bit of like vocabulary terms and stuff?
And it helps a lot too for translators. When we have parents come in, we only have to get like Spanish translators, and that's really helpful. But yeah, for vocabulary stuff, or even like it seems silly, but getting some of the students' attention, so they'll be like,
right,
yeah, we can. Some of the teachers know a little bit of Spanish, and they'll start talking in Spanish, and the kids are like, oh, sorry. Like,
that's funny. I was gonna say I spoke English. My teacher spoke English, and I would still lose my interest too. So it's just like
right. But if you can like throw it out there, and they're like, oh, right,
right, help them cue in. I only have a couple students that in each class, like I have some that are French speakers, some that are Spanish speakers, but I'm not ESL personally.
Right.
But I had them last year, and they were moved out to just be in all ESL related courses. And now I have them this year, and they're already like conversational. They understand what I'm saying. It's incredible how fast.
Most of our students, their parents speak conversational English. And so the kids come into school speaking conversational English, which is why I'm focusing so much on reading, because that's something that their parents can't do with them in English, or usually not in either language. So
yeah,
it's a lot of my job.
It's pretty common with English speakers too, though. Honestly, like in my district, the parents don't know how to read or something like that. It's kind of frustrating, but it's true.
Go home and read to your parents, and the kids are like, no,
yeah,
all right.
Do you speak Spanish? Or another language? I
speak enough Spanish to embarrass myself in front of parents.
Okay. There you go.
So I don't...
You're trying.
I don't translate. I took like 2 years in high school of like Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, and then I took Spanish 1 and 2 again in college. So I know like basic Spanish.
Sure.
And if I have to like read something in Spanish, I can kind of figure it out. I mean, I've like translated my worksheets and stuff, but it hasn't been a huge issue because at this school, the kids they speak English for the most part.
Right.
At my previous district, most of my students that couldn't speak English spoke Swahili, and that was not going to be something I learned anyway.
Sure. How does that work? That like, let's say you don't know the language at all. Like, let's say it's Swahili or whatever. How do you really, as an ESL teacher, because you don't have to speak the language,
right?
To
No,
be
that's
ESL
not part
certified.
of the certification.
So how does that work on a day-to-day basis? Like, what's a lesson plan if you have to communicate what they're learning, and like how does it work?
A lot of pictures.
Okay.
A lot of pictures, and then being able to do word-to-word translation for vocabulary as much as possible.
Okay.
And so when I taught beginners, I did teach some beginners who spoke Swahili, and so we were talking about family members, and so we'd put like mother, father, brother, sister, and then we put the Swahili words, and they spoke French, it's Swahili and French, so we put French up there, and then with pictures, and they were able to like talk to each other in Swahili really quick and talk about their family, and then they're like, okay, I have this one, and they're like point, and I was like, a brother, and she was like, yes, 2, and I was like, okay, cool, we got it. So a lot slower pace, but they also, like, kids who are newcomers want to be able to talk to you and to communicate to other kids,
and
so
understand, and
they work really hard to like pick up on stuff and learn really quick.
Well, and also like neuroplasticity, they can pick it up really quiely. Like they're like a sponge, so that they can shift and change. Especially you said elementary, so that makes it easier. But well, even my high schoolers though, like I have these 2 seniors, they're twins. For like the first 2 weeks, I would always confuse which one was which, and now I finally got it down pat, and I don't see them as twins anymore, which is great. They didn't speak a single word of English. Like we were at one point thinking, let's move them to a school where they have those ESL supports.
Right.
They didn't, because we finally got an ESL teacher, and now I can have a full-blown conversation and not have to worry, like, did you understand what I said? Because they're just that good. Also really motivated, too. Like, that's part of it.
And that helps.
Yeah, always does. Kimmy, who's been on the show, she's a speech pathologist.
Okay.
So she also has come into, like, some issues, like, when we get to, like, oh, shit moments where she's like, oh, crap, this kid's really pissed off at me. How do I, like, transition him back to the room? Have you ever had like a moment when you're like, either if it's an intervention where you're pulling them, or when you're in the class where you're just like, oh crap, what am I supposed to do with this situation? Even as like a non like core teacher, as they would say.
Yeah, my interventions this year, I do it one for each grade level. 5th grade, I have it right at the beginning of the day. And the kids that I have are working really hard, and we're reading my favorite book, which is A Series of Unfortunate Events. But it's super...
I never read it, but I saw the movie.
Oh my gosh,
Shameless.
It's so good. We're going to watch, I mean, that next week we're watching the movie.
Yeah, you kind of have to. It's time it out perfectly.
Right. I know, I was like, it's the week before break. But they do really well. But I have my 3rd and 4th grade groups. My 3rd graders, I have 8 3rd graders in a classroom that's smaller than your living room. There's literally only room for like us in there. And so I like had to steal a desk and a table to put in the hallway. But I have kids who just like should not be within elbows space of each other who are in there together. And so from the start of the year, like I'd be like, all right, come in, have a seat. And I was teaching high school last year to elementary this year. And so I was like, this is going to be hard because I'm like used to working with high schoolers. And so I was like, all right, come in, have a seat. And immediately like, I can't sit by him. I hate him. And I was like, oh no. And
what day was this? Like how early in the year?
Like week 1.
Oh,
day 1.
Yeah, you aren't kidding. That's like the biggest, like, oh shit.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, it's probably my fault because I'm used to like high school where they know what they're doing when they come in. But now it's still happening. And I'm like, okay, not me. Not that it's the students, but it's the students. And so having to like, work with the classroom teacher and be like, hey, if I send a kid back, I'll make sure that he does the work with me another time, but he can't be in here today. And she's like, okay. And so there's been like working with that classroom teacher is super helpful in that, where I'll be like, hey, so-and-so had to come back to class today. I'll just grab him during breakfast tomorrow and we'll do the work because he's completely blowing up the rest of the room.
Yeah.
Or there's like a teacher right across the hall from me and has given me permission to sit kids in there. And so there's one student in particular who will like come in and spin in circles and pick up chairs, and there's not room for that. Like there's no empty space for you to pick up chairs.
It's a tight grid here, kid.
Right. Without hitting somebody. And so I'm like, cool, you can sit next door. And he's like, she's mean. I don't want to sit in her classroom. And I'm like, okay, cool. Go sit for 5 minutes and then you can come back and maybe not do that again. So yeah, the classroom teachers that I work with have been really helpful in that much. Like if I can't teach, because I only have like 30 minutes for intervention.
Yeah, and it goes by fast. It's like 50-minute goes by pretty fast too.
Right, and if I have to spend half of it getting you to find your butt in a chair, then that was a waste of a day. So
yeah, that's what I do most of my one of my last classes of the day. It's a U.S. history class, and they're sophomores, and they should know better, but they behave a lot like that one kid that you were mentioning, where they're just all over the place. I'll start the lesson with the do now. We finally end the do now, and then 5 kids come in late, and they're like, well, I want to get the do now. I'm like, sorry. Right. And then I restart the lesson just to kind of like get like all right, here's our purpose for the day. And then 5 more kids come in, and it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm going to teach 4 different times in one class period.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
had
weird.
to do that the other day with 3rd graders because they got in a fight. And so
really?
So the principal was bringing in the 3rd graders to my intervention group as he finished talking to them about the fight that had happened. And I was like, why are you bringing them? I'll just do it another day. It's fine.
I've had that before too. We've had like a handful of fights. One of which I remember I was being observed by a student, and she was just like, hey, to our principal, can I watch a few teachers, once or twice a week? I'm like, sure. And her second day, a fight broke out like right outside my classroom. And I can never forget the look on her face. She was just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I was like, this isn't normal. Like, don't worry. You'll be fine.
It's only every other week. It's okay.
Yeah, it's only every other week. Don't worry. You don't take a punch like once or twice.
Yeah,
but
no,
I felt so bad for her. But there was also this one moment where it was during a test, like midway through the year, and there was this one kid that he's now being moved to like a therapeutic school because that's what he needs. And at the time, he didn't have special education services at all. He was regular ed. It had to happen, but the parent like wasn't coming to conferences and stuff like that. Test is going on, and he's yelling like, fuck this, and like, screw you all, and like, I fuck bitches, like all this stuff. Like, what is wrong with you is what I wanted to say to him. And he jumps up on this counter I have. He kicked over one kid's desk, just like all over the place. And finally I'd like carry him to the hallway so he can like get out. Like I want him gone for the day.
Right.
And then they bring him back in 5 minutes later.
Oh my God.
5 minutes later, he sits down and he starts like, and I was like, why is he back here? And he starts going like, what the fuck's your problem, man? Like,
right.
And they came to me and they were like, you should really give him a chance to re-engage. I was like, you shouldn't have brought him back that early.
Yeah,
like,
tomorrow. He can have a chance tomorrow.
Right. Like if you want to try to like prove that like we've given him chances, like give him a time to like at least 20 minutes, something.
I need 20 minutes.
Yeah, I need 20 minutes. You're right. I did need 20 minutes. That kid.
Oh my gosh.
It was mostly, there were days where he would just like walk in, get the work, wouldn't say a word to me, and then he'd walk out and then the paper would be on the floor 2 seconds later.
Yep.
Those were good days.
Right.
Those were good days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this 3rd grader I have, he doesn't swear yet, which is good, but instead he'll just scream about, I'm so stupid, and I wish I was dead. And I was like, well, the more you say that, right, And so thankfully he sees like our in-school counselor, and I'll like bring it up to her and be like, hey, so he said it again. And she's like, okay, I'll talk to him. And then I had to like call his parents, be like, just so you know, it's happened a couple of times now with me where he's like talked about hurting him. He told me he was going to jump off a roof.
Oh, Jesus.
And I say it like nonchalantly just because like it's,
well, I mean,
it's his
there
version
probably
of
isn't that intent,
cussing
that
me
much
out.
intent, but
He just can't. But he wants attention, and that's how he knows like, now I have to pull him aside and talk to him about it and stuff. And I was like, you can't say stuff like that because we have to take it seriously and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, okay. And then the next day did it again. I was like, all right.
Were the parents like on board with like, oh, we should probably work on curbing this? Or?
No.
Okay. Yeah,
No.
I had that experience too.
No, we have talked to Mom about like, hey, he's really, he's like aggressive and pushing people and stuff. And she was like, yeah, he threw a plate at me this weekend.
Oh my God.
And I just don't know what to do with him anymore.
Also saying it very nonchalantly. That's interesting.
Right. And we were like, so as an educator, I can't like officially recommend services, but your kid needs something.
Right. Like ask for some sort of support. Yeah.
Right.
That's crazy. That's pretty common too, where you call home, which I feel like at the high school level, it shouldn't have to happen, but I have to do it constantly. Mm-hmm. And that's the answer I get most of the time is, well, they're 18, so, they're an adult, they can handle it. Like, well, yeah, they're really not. Or, I don't know what to do with them at home. Or my favorite is, oh, really? He never does that at home. Like, yeah, no shit.
Right. What? You mean he might act differently when he's here?
Well, we got, I had like I don't remember if it was an exit ticket or a do now, and it was just like a reflection, like, hey, how are things going? That kind of stuff. Like there were other things to it.
Right.
This one girl didn't write anything except for, I've been feeling really bad. I don't know if I want to be here anymore. What's the point of life? And so we brought it up to the mom, and she like over the phone laughed in our face saying like, the actual phrase was, you motherfuckers with degrees don't know anything. Like you're all just a bunch of stupid assholes. And she didn't mean it. She was probably joking, laughed, hung up on us like very...
Oh my God.
Yeah, crazy, right? Like you're trying to be all professional and then you get that and you're like, what?
Well, never mind then.
Yeah. So that one was... It doesn't surprise me that the parents like, I don't really know what to do because we get unresponsive parents all the time.
Right. And it's so sad when like he's only 8 and you're like, hi, we're like concerned about him. And the parents like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, you haven't had him that long.
Right. That's always disconcerting. You're doing our podcast now, which is awesome. But have you ever done anyone else's podcast in the past, whether it's education or something else?
I haven't been. This is my first time being a guest on a podcast.
Okay.
My roommate and we moved together to Iowa City when she was going to the University of Iowa for grad school.
Represent.
We lived like a 10-minute walk away from the stadium.
Okay, right by Kinnick?
Yes, that was kind of a culture shock. Like the first Saturday morning game, I was like,
intense.
why are there so many people outside right now? It's not okay.
I'd say Kinnick is bigger than most NFL stadiums, just for like way bigger than Soldier Field.
It's huge. And like if the game starts at 3, people are tailgating at 7 a.m.
7 in the morning.
And I know because I heard them and saw them outside my apartment.
Nice.
But when we moved, one of the things that we did and we attempted to do was we went ahead and we recorded a podcast. And so we did about...
Nice.
I just looked at it yesterday. I think we did 14 episodes over the course of like 8 months. Okay. And then realized that like we just couldn't keep up with like trying to actually sit down at the same time and record. And part of the concern was like privacy issues. She's a speech therapist. And so she's got a lot of laws about privacy. And then as a teacher, can't just talk about my kids all the time.
Yeah.
And so, but we did about 14 episodes of that. And it was super, but it was super fun.
Mm-hmm. What was it called?
We called it the Interesting People Podcast.
The Interesting People Podcast. Can we still find that somewhere? I would say 14 weeks. That's like a pretty decent catalog right there. That's, a few months right there.
It was on iTunes, but when I looked yesterday, I was trying to show one of my students yesterday because I was telling her that I was going to be on this podcast. And she was like, oh yeah, she's super shy. She was like, yeah, I stream on Twitch sometimes. And I was like, what?
I feel like every kid is like a internet sensation.
I know, but she
stuff.
never talks in class. And I was like, do we just need to hand you a headset for you to like participate?
Give her a screen and a camera and just put her somewhere else and she'll be fine.
But so I was trying to find it for her. So I know like the last couple episodes were on SoundCloud and then it was on iTunes.
Okay.
At some point. But
you probably maybe only a few episodes because if you stop paying for like the hosting service, then I think they take it down.
Then they take it down.
Unless you like have it on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
That might be it, but okay. The Interesting People Podcast?
The Interesting People Podcast.
Okay.
So
I'll have to find it.
Yeah. The highlight was definitely that Christina, my roommate, wrote her own ads. for like fake sponsors.
That sounds awesome. It's a lot of work, but yeah, I like that.
And so one of them was like an ad for a news source company where you got to pick only the news that you agreed with, and that would be what you like. That was the whole ad. Was like,
what was the read? What was the read like? Yeah, let's
it was like, are you tired of seeing news that makes you upset or that you don't agree with? We have a solution for you. Oh my gosh! And every time it was just something silly like that. Like I was like, we need that in real life. She's like, no, we don't. That was a joke.
I wonder if we should do like an ad break, like right here. And then just do like a fake ad read or something like that.
Right.
I'll have to do that in post or something like that. That'd be awesome.
Oh man, it's 3:00 again. Are you in that mid-afternoon slump? Does it take every fiber of your soul to keep from falling asleep at work? Then listen closely. Some companies will tell you that you need healthy snacks to keep your body energized. Healthy snacks are just so boring though. Everyone wants to show off the yucky stuff they eat, so what's the solution? We here at Fake It, Don't Make It believe that food can be delicious and healthy. Our snacks are as salty, sugary, or fatty as you want. The secret is they're contained in special packages labeled with all the best buzzwords. Plus, the snacks actually look like that terrible healthy food you see on Pinterest. So while your friends think you are so healthy for eating those vegan, non-GMO, free-range kale chips, you're actually chowing down on the best salty snack. Go to our website today to learn more about monthly packages full of amazing, quote, healthy snacks. Never again let anyone know you secretly love junk food like any normal human.
So what did you usually guys like talk about? Like a speech path and then...
It was the end of my first year teaching, and then through the summer. And so we talked about school and just about some of the silly stuff. I was teaching elementary school in the morning and high school in the afternoon. I had a split job my first year teaching.
Oh my God.
And so just the like ridiculous things that my high school students would do, or the silly stuff my elementary school students said. I had one kid who told me like, we were talking about boys and girls because that's like our vocabulary. And he was like, you're not a girl, you're a superhero. And I was like, damn straight I am.
I like it, yeah. That's how you identify now. That's
absolutely, awesome. 100%. And then, so, talking about work, and then also, I am a mild hypochondriac.
Okay.
And so...
That's right. I think you mentioned that this is how it kind of started.
It's kind of how it started, was that I, was sick all the time, and just being a first year teacher, all of the germs hit at once.
Yep.
And I didn't know that I was allergic to Iowa City, and that I have seasonal allergies.
It does. I did have seasonal allergies just when I was there, and I moved back because I'm from Chicago.
Right.
I moved back here, and I was fine again.
Right.
It's the weirdest thing ever.
No, but just Iowa City. It's actually because of how the city planted the trees, which is a different... There's a biology thing they did not think through. So there's just a lot of pollen in Iowa City.
Right.
So on top of that, and then just my first year teaching and being sick all the time, and then I have stomach issues, and that's not diagnosed. And so I, in college, kind of disowned my stomach, and so I call it Gertrude. And so when I'm sick, instead of being like, oh, I have stomach issues, because that makes people uncomfortable, I'll just be like, oh, Gertrude's angry, or Gertrude's mad. And
nice.
so when we recorded our podcast, it'd be like, one of the segments that we had was called my working theory. And so my one working theory was that I had stomach cancer, and then I realized I had eaten a lot of asparagus, and so my pee was a weird color, and I was like, I'm dying, and
nice.
Had to work through that whole thing.
What was the segment called again?
Working theory.
Working theory. Nice.
So, and then we would do my roommate is a huge history nerd and loves podcasts like The Dollop. And stuff like that. And so we would talk about somebody that she had read about recently from history, and they're cool, what they did. And
yeah.
being badass.
I did the RFK tapes, and I was like, oh, I could use this to teach a conspiracy unit. And then I was like, that's too much work.
Right.
That's awesome, though. So 14 episodes, though. That's pretty impressive. And you had segments and everything. That's way more organized than me.
We thought it out a lot, and then we put a good effort into it. Mm-hmm. And then the summer hit, and I was coming back to Wisconsin on the weekends. She had to stay at school, and then she drove back to Wisconsin on weekends. I was in Iowa City, and of course, when the second school year started, we were both like, I don't think we can do it.
Right.
So
that's pretty common for shows too, and a lot of people, they put it down for a little bit, pick it back up, or they start a new one. It's just kind of how it goes, but. 14 weeks, so you're not messing around there. It's more organized than mine is. I only have one segment. You guys had multiple, you had ad reads, even though they weren't real. That's awesome.
We did, so.
So this kid, though, that had a Twitch account, was she making money off of that?
No, she said she posts on YouTube.
Okay.
I was super fascinated. We were just talking about it yesterday, and I went to ran to tell her teacher. She said she only streamed on Twitch once, but her YouTube account, and I didn't ask her what it was, but her and her cousin, like, I don't know if it's real stories or if it's like made up stories, but they write the stories, and then she's a really good artist. So sometimes she just illustrates on paper, and sometimes she does actual animation.
Oh, wow.
And they like, right. And they
It's
like
more than I was doing when I was
illustrate or animate the stories and then post them on YouTube. And so it's
Wow.
like them telling a story with these like animations or illustrations that she's done behind it. And so I was like, that's super cool, because literally she doesn't talk. She's got really, really high anxiety. So at the end of the day, she comes and hangs out with me instead of being dismissed with her class, because her class like stresses her out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because they all like won't be quiet and they're like pushing. And she like told the teacher, she was like, I hate being here at the end of the day. And I was like, she can come hang out with me and like clean the desks off or whatever.
Right.
Because I don't have any kids.
There's always those handful of kids every year that like during lunch or like the end of the day, they just need like a place to go. It's kind of a good feeling, to be honest.
Yeah. So I felt so bad for her, because I was like, I get it. Because the couple of times that I've like seen her class at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to be there, and I'm an adult here. So, but yeah, she was telling me about it, and so she does like they have like a YouTube account, and she's like, yeah, it's super fun. The teacher had them like record a little book talk, and then like they had to share their book talk with a first grader, so they like made a video.
Oh, wow.
And the teacher was like, I have never heard her say so many words. She was super comfortable and like just went right into it. So now knowing that she like makes YouTube content, I was like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, she's got some sort of outward expression for something. That's more than I can do, probably. She's probably more talented at it than I am.
I know. I was like, you do animation? And she's like, I'm really bad at it. And I was like, okay, but that's better than most people.
Right. Like I was just watching
really
the Pixar documentary on animation. Like that's some serious stuff right there.
It's a big deal.
That's awesome, though. So you also mentioned you did elementary in the morning and afternoon was high school.
Yes.
How did that for your first teaching job? Right.
Yes, my first year teaching.
Is that like a roving teacher, as they would say? Or?
Yeah. So it was a traveling teacher position.
Oh my god.
I was officially hired. I decided I was going to move to Iowa in like February. And signed a lease, I think, in May, and then got the job in June. So I had like already was going to move before I got the job. And so I was hired for the elementary school, but it was only a part-time position. Okay. But because the ESL population in Iowa City was growing so quickly, they said, we are going to make you a full-time teacher. We just don't know what the other half of your job is going to be.
Nice.
And I was like, all right, cool.
Just think fourth dimensionally. Like it'll be there when you get there.
Right. And so I started at the high school. My first week of like when there's like new teacher training and stuff was an absolute nightmare. My car got totaled.
Oh, gee. Okay.
Like on my way to work.
Okay.
I got rear-ended. My car I had to call the principal and was like, hey.
That happened to me when I was student teaching. I got rear-ended and the car was totaled.
So I will be late. And he was like, don't worry about it. And then my license almost didn't come through in time.
Okay. Oh, teaching license.
My teaching license for Iowa. They're like, if you don't have a license, you can't be in the building the first week of school. And I was like, everything that I know about teaching says it starts from the moment that students get there. And if I can't be there, the whole year is going to be shit.
Well, it's not the way you envision it, right?
No, especially like,
the first year.
The first year teaching, and you're like, I need to start with high expectations. And if they're going to have a sub, then it's all a mess anyway. That's
like when I walked into my first class of the day. This was I'm only in my second year. And my first class, I was like, all right, let's go. I turn around, 2 kids are there. I was like, all right, we're off to a great start.
Yay. Yeah. And so I taught at the high school for about 6 weeks, just afternoon classes. And then in the morning, I was doing like entrance testing for new ESL students, because the ESL kids have to take to take a test to place them.
I was at the high school level in Illinois. We have them do like 2 or 3 tests per year, just to, even if they're like already like fluent, we have to test them all the time. So those poor kids. Yeah.
Right. And so if they're new to the district, though, then they have to take a test right away. So I did that for my coworkers, because they like had classes. And then in October, I finally got my second placement, which was at an elementary school in the morning. And so I taught kindergarten in the morning, small groups, and then I had one group of third graders who were brand newcomers from the Congo.
Oh, wow.
So they spoke.
That'll be fun.
One kid spoke French and Swahili, and then the girl spoke Swahili and Lingala.
Do you know the region?
It's from the Congo.
Oh, okay, all of them.
And so there's like I don't remember which region of the Congo. So essentially those 3 languages make up the languages spoken in the Congo. But Lingala doesn't have like a written dictionary. So trying to like teach them vocabulary, I'd put it in French and Swahili, but she didn't always know the Swahili. Like they didn't always use formal Swahili either.
Okay.
And it was, like our version of Spanglish, but they spoke like some mashup of these. So he would have to translate it for her, and then she would translate it, like talk to him back in Swahili, and then they'd be like, "This is the word we use," and I'd be like, "Okay, cool," like right there.
Learning as you go, yeah.
Yeah, and then I had 2 sections of kindergarten, and then I in the afternoon went and taught high school.
Wow. Yeah, you were all over.
Classes. Yeah.
It makes you marketable though, right? Like, hey, I've done everything.
Well, yeah. And so like, because I was student taught or went to school in Illinois. So my first teaching license is in Illinois. And it was only 6th through 12th grade. So I never took classes to teach elementary and never intended to.
Right.
But when my license transferred to Iowa, they don't have that option for ESL. It's only a K-12 license.
Got it. Okay.
And so they were like, "Oh, you're licensed to teach K-12." And I was like, kind of. And they were like, "Cool." And so I got placed in elementary school. And now this year I'm teaching elementary full time, even though
nice.
I've never, that's not what my degree's in. But because I had experience.
That's all I needed.
Yeah.
Are you worried they're going to be like, "Hey, you should probably go get a few classes," or are they okay with it?
I think they're okay with it. The building I'm teaching in right now is doing everything they can to not have me leave. So that's a good feeling. Yeah, kind of. There's a lot of teachers who I don't think are going to come back next year. So I'm like, should I be on that train? Or
what do you think their reason is for wanting to leave?
Administration is.
Oh, okay.
We have, I think between Tuesday and Wednesday this week, we had 6 fights in the building.
Okay. Wow, that was a rough week.
Yeah. And nobody, not that suspending students is never the best option, but nobody got suspended for it. Mm-hmm. They all were immediately back in the classroom with the kids they were fighting with.
Yeah, that sounds like my classroom.
And right, but they're like my 3rd graders were fighting on the playground, and so this is kind of like the breaking point for a lot of teachers of right. It keeps happening and it's getting worse and worse. Mm-hmm. And the administration's like, well, just try to keep them in class as much as you can. It's like nobody else is learning anything. Right,
like if everyone's trying to appease their boss for whatever reason academically, and they're just ignoring everything in between. It's just
right. Well, and if you have 2 kids who can't stop yelling at each other, or kids who are we had said running around the room kicking stuff over, how are you going to teach anything? And that's the majority of our classrooms have situations like that right now.
Yeah. Well, I had that too, where there were 2 kids that fought, and if it were me, I saw most of the fight happen, and I broke it up. Even got punched in the face on accident when I was trying to break it up. But how can you determine who was and wasn't at fault if they were both swinging fists?
Right.
I get defending yourself, that's kind of tricky, but both these kids were really throwing haymakers and everything.
Right.
Only one kid got suspended for 1 day. The other kid was back in class instantly. I just don't understand the logic.
Right.
So
and even if I understand the kids should be in school, but even for the teachers, sometimes they need a break from those students.
Yeah.
And from us, okay, great. Now, because of that, but you have to repair the relationship with your teacher, and that's not going to happen today. So today you're in so-and-so's room.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and it was heartbreaking too, because when that happened, one of the kids was hit in the nose, and so blood splattered everywhere. It looked like a crime scene. There was all over my shirt with his nose blood. And there's this one kid who's on the autism spectrum. He's a really sweet kid, really smart. And after that happened, his aide. I really love her. She got him and ran out the door. She was already gone. But he came up to me and he was like, "I didn't feel safe that day." And I was like, "I'm so sorry, man." I felt so bad. Because he was apparently the backstory is that he felt really protected having a male teacher, which he hasn't had a lot of in his career. And so seeing that male teacher get punched, he was like, "Oh, that's shattered." So and more recently, I was out for a couple days because I was on a field trip, and then I was really sick and didn't go in. And I came back, and he's like, "I'm so glad you're back." And I was like, "Thanks, man.
That's so
I
sweet.
appreciate it." But yeah, that was a moment hearing that he didn't feel safe. It was just a lot to take.
Yeah,
in.
I took I couldn't take the full day because of testing, but I took half a day last week. Our students get out at 12:45 on Fridays, and I was like, and I'm out. Because of between all the fighting and the tension between teachers and administration, and then we were running standardized tests, I was like, I'm exhausted. And if I have to stay here for meetings all afternoon, I might die here.
Yeah,
I'm out.
I love when I've always gotten an email at least 2 or 3 times in the past month where it's meeting is canceled, sorry about this, and I'm like, don't apologize.
Never apologize.
If anything, let me thank you for
right.
It's
Our
always
staff
great.
meetings are every other week at 7 a.m. on Wednesdays.
God.
And I'm like, why do you hate us?
Right. Like, do you want us to live throughout this year?
Right.
But, so you mentioned that there's an issue with Spirit Week. And so I wanted to ask you about it. What was the issue that you had with your Spirit Day? Because it sounds like it was a bigger issue.
Yes. It's Spirit Day in general.
Okay.
And I guess people didn't realize so it came up more at Halloween. Our students are not allowed to wear Halloween costumes to school.
Okay.
Because,
even if they don't cover the face?
Correct.
Okay.
No Halloween costumes at school on the day of Halloween because it points out such a huge difference in socioeconomic status.
Got it.
Between our students.
Okay. As
far as, whose families can afford really cool Halloween costumes and whose families can't.
Okay. I see where they're coming from.
And so...
It stinks, but I get it.
Right. And in our building, we have a couple of students who are homeless, quite a few students who live with not the parents, with another guardian.
Okay.
And I know of my kids, a lot of them live at a different house every couple days.
Sure.
With mom or dad or aunt or whoever.
Which would legally be homeless if that's the case. Yeah.
Is homeless. And so it made sense to for that. And so for Spirit Week then, I had said we just got a robocall today that was like, we're doing Spirit Week next week. And it's like, well, our kids a lot of them don't participate, and they say it's because they don't want to, but we also have issues of they don't, we can't do pajama day because they don't have pajamas that they want to wear at school. It's not like all of our kids have cute pajamas to wear at school.
Right, it's whatever they have, yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, there's been a little bit of an issue. It hasn't gone all the way to a conversation within the building, but a little bit of an issue of maybe we shouldn't be doing Spirit Weeks unless it's something we can provide for kids, just because them showing up to school with stuff that they might not even be able to participate in stinks.
Sure. Yeah, I get that now. Yeah, that is definitely a bigger issue, especially I work in a low-income neighborhood too, so I could see why that's a thing. But I'm not even sure why they're doing it. I get it. It's never a bad time to boost the spirit of the school, but we're just doing it the week before break. I'm not sure why the timing has to be now, and it sounds like yours is somehow shaping up around the same time. So
yeah,
really
and that's all it is. It's the week before break, and so some of the grade level teachers had been talking about doing it, and I think the principal heard and was like, "That's a great idea." So we got a mass call.
Got it.
All right.
Got it.
Whatever.
Well, I guess to kind of close this out, I overheard this in the hallway, or maybe it was in my classroom. I can't remember. It was a couple weeks ago. But a kid was talking about cornbread, saying cornbread, I heard it makes you thick. I was like, what the fuck? So you had a podcast where you were telling all these crazy stories. What's one of your favorite phrases that you've had from a student?
Did you say thick
thick
CC or CK?
CC.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Thick CC.
That's awesome.
I know. I was like, what? We also had a moment where one of our staff members, she was running one of our PDs and stuff. It was just staff wide, and she accidentally bumped into the piano and hit a few keys. She's like, "Oops, sorry, had a baby. I'm still a little thick." And it was just one of those really funny moments. That was awesome. But
I have a couple. One that I said was when I was in Illinois and Wisconsin, it's called the Access Test, which is a standardized test that the English language learners take to see how they've grown in English proficiency. And it's all computerized. And so in Iowa, they have the same test, but it's a different name. It's Iowa's version. And so a kid was doing the speaking test, and it'll ask you, what do you see in the picture? And you just have to, record yourself saying what you see. And he was like, this is a stupid fucking test, and I don't want to do it. And I was like, okay, that's nice. It's a high school, a freshman.
Is this while he was being recorded?
No, he's telling me. And I was like, okay, cool. And so he notices that the girl across from him at the other computer is on the same question he is. And so he took his headset off his head and held the microphone up over the desk so that it recorded her voice on his microphone, and then he didn't have to answer the question. And so I came over, and he quickly put it back, his headset back on his head. And I leaned over and I said, this is the sixth time I've told him in class to just do the test already. And I was like, stop being an asshole and just do the test. And he was like, sorry. And so then and then 2 seconds later, he died laughing. And I looked at him and he goes, I caught you on the recording calling me an asshole. And I was like, shit. And so awesome. I had to come over, delete the whole recording. And I was like, please redo that and do your work.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
So at least this year with running the test, I didn't call any of my kids an asshole during the testing, and hopefully...
That's awesome.
But I had a kid, and my favorite story, I think, is when I was teaching high school, I had a girl run upstairs. We had a 3-story building, and I was on the top floor. And their lunchroom was like in the basement. And so getting to my class after lunch, she like came up and she was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I was like, what? And she goes, I just saw some girl get knocked up downstairs. And I went,
knocked up? Like,
yes.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she goes, yeah, we were in the lunchroom and she got knocked up. And I was like, okay. And all these kids come in and are like starting to tell me. And I was like, okay, great. Have a seat. And so I wrote on the board, knocked up. And then wrote on the board, knocked out. And we had like a quick mini lesson when class started about the difference between idioms. And I was like, so how many of you saw a girl downstairs get pregnant during lunch today? And one of the boys was like, ew. And I was like, hence the difference between the phrase.
Right. That's one of those moments, right? I had, it was a professor when I was at Iowa. I had him for 3 classes, and he taught special ed, like before special ed was like a real thing. Like he was like one of the founders of it. And so Paul, if you're listening, I doubt it. But hey, when he was getting to the sex ed unit, he was like, oh shit, how do I handle this? Because he was like 23 at the time. This is like 1960 something or whatever.
Right.
And he was like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. So he goes into class and he says, all right, I want you to tell me every single dirty word you know related to sex. And he wrote sex and he did like a little web and he was just writing them down. And he was like, all right, get it out of your system. Let's hear them all. And they were all laughing and all that stuff. It's kind of like one of those.
That's awesome.
That's always the reminder. So, hey, Paul, what's up?
I had an oh shit moment.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
Big oh shit moment.
Welcome back to the oh shit moment segment. In this segment, this is where a teacher really got into a moment where they just thought, oh shit!
So teaching in Iowa City, we had a lot of students who were refugees. And for the most part, a lot of them, like their parents had fled from the Congo during the Civil War. So a handful of our kids had grown up in like refugee camps.
Sure.
And then so they're what we call SIFE students, severely interrupted formal education. So like they hadn't gone to school for a really long time until they came to the United States, essentially.
Sure.
And so I had one kid who didn't come to the United States until he was like 16 or 17. And like, you know, within the school system, if you're 21, then that's your last year in high school. Like you can't go past that. You have to do an alternate program. And so at the time he was 20 and I was 22 as his teacher.
Yeah, a little weird.
And yeah, and I was like, yeah, I'm 28. And he was like super tall and super intimidating and like did not want to listen to anybody. And so he would like get up in my face all the time. I'd be like, you know, please have a seat, get your workout. You know, I have like a do now on the board. Like, and he's like, I don't have to do anything you say, you know, out of this class. Blah. And I was like, all right, cool, have a seat. Well, then I found out from my coworkers that this particular student was like, he's not one of the students whose parents had fled. This student was actually like a child soldier in the Congo.
Oh, okay.
And then came to the United States with his family.
Like salute him now.
Right.
General.
And I was like, now I understand why you don't give a shit what I say, because why would you, frankly? But he also was super, super like rude and inappropriate, and, like would get really, really close to me and yell at me and just made me uncomfortable and was not okay. And so, you know, one day he came in and he'd been doing that like all week, and he came in and he got in my face and I said, sit down. Like, I'm not talking to you right now. Sit down. And he was like, I don't know why you're so mad. And he like made this huge lap around the classroom and was like talking to people the whole way around and like anything except sitting down. And then he comes back around and he comes in my face and he goes, I know why you're mad today. You're mad because your boyfriend beat you last night.
Jesus.
And I was like, all right. And so I had already emailed the principal that morning saying, like, you need to talk to this kid because he's being so disrespectful and so rude and saying stuff.
I say, plus, like, shouting something that inappropriate out. Like,
but then he, like, shouted that in my face. And I happened to have, there's a para in the class with one of the special ed kids. And so, you know, the paras aren't supposed to teach, but they can, you know, like, supervise. And I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. And he was like, go. And so I walked the kid out the door. I said, you know, I need to go to the office. And, like, 5 minutes later, he's just standing outside my door. He hasn't, like, gone downstairs at all. Sure. And so I marched him down the stairs, all 3 flights of stairs, and the whole way he was like, I don't know why I'm in trouble. You have to tell me why I'm in trouble. I get to know why I'm in trouble. You can't just yell at me. And I was like, I'm not talking to you. I'm like, if you have an issue, you can talk to the principal. And it just so happened that we got to the very bottom floor, and the principal had been standing in the lobby talking to somebody and heard him yelling at me echoing all the way down the stairs. And so we got to the bottom floor and he was like, I didn't do anything wrong. And the principal went, please come to my office. And he was like, And so he got brought to the principal's office. Mom got called because we didn't have a Swahili translator.
Jeez.
Our French teacher translated from English to French. and the mom understood like half of what she was saying, and then the student had to translate it from French to Swahili, and then he got in a ton of trouble by mom and the administrators. He was kicked out of my class. And they said, if you look at her, if you talk to her, if you step foot in her classroom, you're not coming back this year. Like, if you want to graduate, you can't talk to her.
Yeah, that's the right call, though.
Right, and especially, like, it'd be different if it was, like, an actual, like, 13-year-old freshman, but he was 20 years old.
Yeah, this legal man, literally.
Literally, and that was the conversation, was, like, in any other situation that is sexual harassment, and so you're going to learn now that that's not okay.
Right, among other things. There's that one. That's that one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that one got resolved, though.
Yeah. That was one of the times where administration was like, yeah, we got you. And I was like, okay.
We got you back. That's always a good feeling.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, there was one time recently with, it was our second floor security. I just wanted to refill my water. And, like, the only time that I really ask for help from security is, like, when it's, like, I truly need it. Like, even fights, I'll break them up, bring them to the hallway, and then say, hey, now you got them. And I just pop my head out to be like, hey, guys, can you cover my room? They, like, jump up, and they're like, what do you need? And I'm like, no. I just need to get water. And they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, sorry, guys, I won't do that again. So I guess that's good that they're like ready to go for me, but that was kind of a fun moment.
You don't overuse that privilege.
So I guess the moral for the listener, respect your teachers.
It's true.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on. I guess we'll do an air cheers from far away.
Thank you.
So this was episode 67. I might have gotten that wrong. 67. I was right. Of Classroom Brew. If you haven't already, rate and review, subscribe, tell people about the podcast, and then, of course, catch up if you haven't. If you want to reach out, we are at Classroom Brew on social media. We also have my producer posting on Reddit every so often, and you have the video podcast highlight clips. If you want to see more of that exclusive content like video podcast episodes, feel free to look at patreon.com/classroombrew. If you become a patron and pledge some money, then you can get some exclusive content only available to patrons. So again, thank you for listening. Brittany, thank you so much for being on. It was fun though, right?
Oh yeah.
Not too nerve-wracking with a microphone in front of you?
No.
That's good. So again, this was episode 67. Thanks so much for listening. And Brittany, do you want to do the honors?
Sure. Class is dismissed.
This was 2018's last episode of Classroom Brew. I'll see you guys next year in 2019.